Senator Bernie Sanders has released a new plan in order to expand broadband. So now it's called the High Speed Internet for All Act, not the High Speed Internet for All Who Want It, which would be the Pete Buttigieg plan, right? I'm kidding, but basically this proposal would start out by treating the internet as a public utility. Therefore, of course, undoing the elimination of net neutrality, which happened under the Trump administration. So now Sanders' plan would create $100 billion in grants and aid for local and state governments to build publicly owned broadband networks as part of the Green New Deal infrastructure initiative. So I love how all of Bernie Sanders' plans are interconnected with each other. And this is just one part of his Green New Deal initiative that, yes, would create millions of good paying jobs. So now the proposal, and this is also really important, would break up what the campaign calls internet service provider and cable monopolies. And it would also stop service providers from offering content and end what it calls anti-competitive mergers. So a lot of those are really important. So now you would have, for example, we have Charter Spectrum. It would end something like Spectrum TV. That's offering content, right? And so look, all that stuff, basically you break it up and you create more competition and have a public utility as well, a municipal broadband company, and you will lower, of course, prices and increase transparency. That's the whole goal of this, right? So as I said before, Charter's the only game in town where I live. And guess what happens? We have opaque billing, and our cable bill goes up every year. And so, look, we don't even watch cable television, right? We have a streaming package and the internet, and that's it. And yet, we pay over $100 a month. It's disastrous. This is the insane prices, right? And they can get away with that because Charter owns pretty much half the territory in the state. I believe Comcast is the other one, though I'm not entirely sure. So, man. Okay. Now, this plan, by the way, would also require service providers to offer basic broadband at affordable prices. In addition, it would put $7.5 billion towards high-speed broadband in Native American communities, so looking out for indigenous people, and ensure that all public housing residents have access to free broadband. So that is, of course, your low-income people. Now, you might think, why should people in public housing have access to the internet? Especially to broadband. I mean, why would they need that? Because most government and public services now are online, as well as most jobs. And not only that, but you also have most education that requires an online presence. So online access points. So this is wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so now, again, this is municipal internet. This is local and state owned and operated. And so what this is incredibly progressive, right? And incredibly pro-consumer. And so it also would be fast because what they're doing is that a lot of these places around the country that have municipal internet, they're using incredibly fast fiber optic networks. So not only are they faster and better and more transparent with pricing and cheaper, it's just better. This is why the telecommunications industry absolutely despises municipal internet. You know how much they spent on lobbying just last year? $92 million. Jesus. So now what do they get for their lobbying efforts? Some 20 states now have rules making it either more difficult to create municipal broadband or some states also outright ban it. So I believe there's about 5 to 6 states that currently ban municipal internet. And a lot of these bans have come very recently as you've seen an increase in doing municipal broadband. So they're looking at this and they're freaking out. Oh, no, ban it. we're going to give you millions and millions of dollars in legalized bribes to crush our competition. Disastrous. So now, here's the thing. This has been growing across the country. And again, this is another reason that they're freaking out. More than 750 communities across the United States have already created their own broadband networks. Or they've at least made a portion of a local fiber network available to the public. And so now, again, a lot of these companies say, nope. So now what's interesting about this is how bipartisan it is. And so, for example, a lot of the cities that have enacted public broadband are, and it's not just cities, it's actually communities. A lot of them are rural and therefore very conservative. And yet, you've got Republicans, conservatives that are like, no, I love my public broadband. Why? Because it gets out to places where the cable companies, it's not profitable for them to get out there. And so I remember living in an area that wasn't serviced by a cable provider. It would have been amazing to have access to a fast broadband network living out in the middle of rural Michigan, right? That would have been amazing. That would have been awesome. And a lot of the conservative people in the area would have loved it. And that's exactly what's going on in these communities. And again, this is why they're trying to turn this into a partisan issue. Oh, no, it's the liberals that want to take away your consumer choice for cable. But wait, you don't have a choice for cable. Again, all we have is Charter Spectrum in one area, or Cox Communications, or, in one part of the state, Comcast in another. Again, the whole problem is regional monopolies. And so I think a lot of people are going to see through that. And a lot of people are going to say, hold on here. I'm not interested in this crap. I want actual choice. And guess what? Having a local public utility controlled by my state or city government, right? And this is about as conservative as you can get, because they don't believe in big government. They believe in small local government. Well, here's a small local government saying, we're going to build our own municipal broadband. And you know what? We're going to have input from all of you. And then guess what? You're all going to benefit from it. Should be an absolute no-brainer. But again, these awful ISPs, they're going to put a lot of money behind this. They're dumping a ton of cash to make it so that you are not able to get that. And let's hope that Bernie Sanders, this bill, does something to address that. But here we go. Bernie Sanders, again, another piece of great legislation, great proposal. He's on the right track. Now, he's not the only one with a bill. Senator Elizabeth Warren has a plan as well as Pete Buttigieg, that I mentioned earlier, and Joe Biden. Buttigieg and Warren want to spend or invest $80 billion into just rural broadband. That's still good for rural areas, but again, not as aggressive as Bernie Sanders. And then Joe Biden, in usual Joe Biden fashion, wants to put about $20 billion into expanding rural internet access. None of them have the kind of plan that challenges the power of these ISPs and their structure like Bernie Sanders. Or, for example, to build and push municipal broadband. That's the right way to go. So obviously, when it comes to policy, Bernie Sanders, once again, has the superior. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. and you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.